Hello everyone, this is Bobbin Threadbare. Welcome back to the Human Revolution. We found our third group of people. ICARO counts as the first, and wow. That's one hell of a door there. But yes, 3 groups, 3 opinions.
Why? Why would ICARO do such a thing? There's nothing to be gained by causing so much pain and terror. All those poor people, they must be so frightened.
Is that a Scandinavian accent there?
How could Darrow turn his back on us? This technology was his baby. It was his passion that made me believe in its possibilities. He's ruined it all. The world will turn its back on us. The industry will collapse and the world will be poorer for it.
I was so scared. I heard 2 of them coming around the corner, tearing at each other. I just dropped to the floor and played dead. One of them ripped the other one's arm off and beat him to death with it. I thought for sure I was going to be next, but he never noticed me.
Do I know you? You're Cyrus boy, aren't you? Jensen. Are you here to stop the carnage? Someone needs to take charge here. I can only imagine what's going on around the globe. This is going to be a death blow to the biotech industry.
Yeah, probably.
Tell me you're here to rescue us? My God, I had to crawl through the ventilation to avoid the carnage. It was the scariest thing I've ever seen. They were completely out of control, like wild animals.
Adam! Oh, thank God you came. I've got wounded here. We'll have to move them first.
We can't move anyone yet. Not until I get to the base of the station and shut down Darrow's broadcast.
What? Why?
The chaos you experienced here, it's everywhere. The Illuminati created a biochip that stops people from using enhanced abilities, and Darrow turned it into a kill switch.
Oh my God, you... We gotta fix this, Adam. If people realize what's happened, if they believe augmentation technology created this chaos, they'll ban human enhancement research forever.
And that would be a bad thing.
Yes, it would! Don't you see what's at stake here? Ever since man first crawled out of that ocean, we've been striving to be more than we are. Augmentation technology is just the latest, greatest step on a very long road. But we've barely scratched the surface of its potential. We can't let fear stop us from continuing.
That's your belief, Seraph. Not everyone shares it.
But you do, Adam. I know it. And if we work together, we can really make a difference. We can improve the lives of everyone, but only if we fix this.
Go on.
We'd have to get a message out after you shut down Hugh's signal. Tell the world, tell them that Humanity Front did this. That their doctors created a virus that only affects augmented people.
You mean lie?
It'll give us time, son. Time to figure out how to destroy the Illuminati's biochips and move on.
And what about the people who've been hurt by this? Don't they deserve the truth?
Adam, if we want the freedom to become more than we are, we can't be blinded by a misguided morality. Some people will be left behind. It's reality. It's evolution, son.
Right. Evolution based on my DNA.
Please, son, you have to stay with me on this.
I'll think about it. You've got no remorse about using me at all, do you?
I never used you, son.
You experimented with my DNA without telling me.
Adam, this is difficult. Listen. Megan came to me with the sample. When she showed me her finding, when we saw the incredible potential of super compatibility...
You just had to share it with the world.
Adam, think about it. Would you have been able to do any of the things you've done without enhancements? Huh? Most people's bodies aren't as accepting of this technology as yours is. Sharing your DNA makes it possible for us to be like you. How can you deny us that chance?
Who said I would deny it? You stole my DNA and lied to me. You didn't give me the choice.
I'm giving it to you now, Adam. Look, I admit it. I haven't done things the best way. But don't punish the world to spite me. Darrow wants us to live in the Dark Ages. The Illuminati wants to limit evolution to those they control. You and me,
Don't group me with you, Seraph. I'll make my own choices from here.
I believe that, son. And I believe you'll make the right ones. I know blaming humanity front leaves a sour taste in your mouth, but it's the only way out of this. So go. The longer that signal broadcasts, the harder it'll be to convince people. Think of it, son. A world where we determine our own path, where there's no limits to human achievement? How can you not want that? Think of it, son. A world
he's only got two things to say. Alright, well, that's all three now. So I imagine you can guess at this point that these are basically the same three choices you had in Deus Ex, past, present, and future. Hugh Darrow wants to put the genie back in the bottle, to pull us back away from the advancing technology that he helped create. The, what's-his-face, the Humanity Front guy, he is the present. He wants to continue as we have, but to switch out neuropazine control for direct control over the augmentations. And Seraph, of course, wants us to go forward, to push as far and as fast as possible into the future, and see where we go from there. And honestly, in this case, I don't like any of them. I mean, I basically critiqued all three endings back in my Deus Ex LP, but in this case, I wouldn't want any of these three people in charge of the future. Like, Hugh Darrow considers genocide to be a positive action in order to control what people do, to force people to go against their inclinations. And that's just not going to work. That's not how it works. Finally, one last gas grenade. Like, you can fool... It's the Lincoln quote. You can fool some of the people all of the time, or you can fool all of the people some of the time, but you cannot fool all of the people all of the time. It just does not work. So that's a possible solution to the corridor coming up, so to speak. But again, I don't want to kill anybody. They do not have control over their actions. So even though it's kind of annoying to have to go around these patrolling guards here, it is possible because there's these little catwalks along either side of the main passageway, the main bridge here. But yes, in the case of Seraph, he also does not have a good point because, well, because augmentations can do terrible things. Because augmentations have allowed this present state to happen. Like, admittedly, it's also because of Hugh Darrow and the Illuminati. But it's true that all three of their points, have contributed to this situation. That's why I don't want any of them in control of it moving forward. Fortunately, there is a fourth ending to this game that was not present in the original, but I will get to that when we get to that. And we will not be getting to that in this video, oddly enough. Alright. That's the last of them. Only one boss battle remains between us and the game's end. Well, one boss battle and one elevator ride. Just in case you didn't talk with all three of them yet. So, we are heading down to the ocean floor. Or at least to a location several hundred feet further down than where we were. And this is a long-ass elevator ride. It's mostly here for the, what would you call that? The suspense, I suppose. But it does give me a little opportunity to talk some more about Seraph's issues. See, like he said right to your face, it's an old-fashioned morality that's keeping him down. But, you know, morals appear for a reason. Hugh Darrow broke a ton of morals by committing genocide in order to get his point across. But Seraph believes that independent ideas should not... Independent... He stole Jensen's DNA. He does not see anything wrong with stealing Jensen's DNA because it advances his personal agenda. Okay, just some last minute stuff here. Heavy rifle, not happening. Some ammo. Oh, that's happening. Oh, whoops. Clicked through too quickly there. Hey, you know what? Actually, some plasma. That actually could come in handy here. Let me just make some room in my inventory here. Let's see. I don't need all of these frag mines. Jesus. In fact, I don't even need to use them. Ammo, it's a little excessive there, too. 120 rounds. That's enough. You know? Alright, let's just drop that into the quick bar here. Oh, nice. It's full, too.
What the hell?
Yeah, also there's this. This is also where augmentation technology leads, when you don't consider the ramifications.
Water pressure nominal at 173 psi.
Who am I?
Communications web online.
I feel cold.
Drones 1 through 3 within operational parameters.
I don't remember.
Drone 4 disconnected.
Let me go.
Processing.
Oh God, please help.
Seraph would only shrug at this.
Stable. Processing.
Zhao, what are you doing?
Connecting to Panchaea's Haran project, Mr. Jensen. The most advanced quantum computer slave to the human brain, and the closest to perfection we'll ever achieve. I'm going to use it to hack Darrow's signal and rework the message to our benefit.
Our benefit? You mean the Illuminati's?
Someone has to override the signal and be the world's savior. And let's be honest, neither of us would trust anyone else to fill that role. Computer, begin EEG sync.
So much pain.
Syncing beta waves at 40 cycles per second.
Sleep, please. Let me sleep.
Incompatible master-slave chain. Alert. Unable to transfer control to Alpha Pod.
The system won't recognize my chip.
Neural systems offline. Rerouting control of the chain.
I can't control Iron.
Increasing glutamate by 32%.
Zhao, get them out of there. I have to reach the control chamber.
No! I can still control it! I'm in control!
Stop the signal.
Security alert.
Through the primary drone hatch.
Oh, shit.
Welcome to the final boss
Alpha Pod
fight.
security in place. To access Alpha Pod, purge tertiary pods.
Alright, well, the computer just said it, but,
I must be the one to alter the signal!
I have to end the lives of the 3 women in those little pods there in order to enter the second stage of this boss battle. In this stage, the glass covering Zhao Yunru is impenetrable.
You have been better served.
Alright, well, that's that.
Your head down, Jensen.
I mean, it does good damage to turrets. 24 shots, destroyed all 3 of them.
Just don't hurt anymore. Just no more pain. Please keep him away from me.
And now that I've taken out all 3, there's nothing attacking me for the rest of this stage of the boss battle.
Once the weight of their gaze touches you, there is no escape.
Alright, by using that security computer, I permanently open those little pods.
I'm just adding pressure. Rising. Can't breathe.
Error in system.
Chiron is really
And yes, you have to kill them.
Rerouting connection.
So you have to give them an overdose of tranquilizers, essentially.
I must. Ah!
Reroute complete.
Like, if that's the route you choose to take, that's the weapon you choose to use. Alright, I had a second, hacking device.
I don't like it here.
Access granted.
Also, why am I conserving resources at this point?
Show us the light, Mother. Where's the light?
Oh. Some guys opened, that door opened and some guys came out. They're still crazy, of course, but they can be problems.
I can't move. Why can't I move? ACHE levels are critically low.
See, there's another door full of people.
In system.
I think that's a, director's cut edition.
Reroute complete.
I have no choice but to eliminate you. You have ruined everything.
By the way, that code I got from Hugh Darrow, the one I won that conversation to get, that basically ends the stage 1 here immediately and lets you go straight to stage 2.
Before we can sleep.
Oh, that's why they keep not. That's why I keep not hitting them.
Chiron will dominate the market. Cyrus will no
They're just
longer
too far away.
be in my side.
The bullet, the dart is dropping too far. Oh, come on, stand still.
The diagnostics are inconclusive.
I know you can stand still, you guys.
Vital signs. Vital signs normal? No.
And the other trouble here, of course, is that these guys are, they're crazy, so they don't count. You aren't going to get experience, so you don't get that indicator to let you know that you've actually taken somebody out. So I don't know how many of these people are down and how many are not. Oh, there goes one at least. Okay, so. And, yeah, it's at this point that I suddenly realized that I still need to show you the... Oh, hang on. One other guy must have chased me or something. I don't know. But yeah, let's look inside these closets here. So yeah, it's full of stuff. Ammunition in particular. EMP grenade. That could actually come in handy, but I don't think to take it here. But yeah, the other way to deal with these 3 ladies here, trapped in a computer in a living nightmare, tortured for all eternity, etc., etc. Jesus Christ. And they've got the little Icarus wings too. See there? Right, but I just passed the little control console where you type in the number, and you do that and stage 1 just ends. All 3 ladies die instantly, and I think it takes care of the turrets too. But yeah, you press this button.
Pod 2 safety purge in progress. Stand by. Contamination warning.
They come down for 3 or 4 seconds, then they go back up.
Primary security measures disabled. Power surge detected. Electrical charge above normal levels and rising. Preparing for discharge sequencing. Warning. Electrical charge subject.
So yeah, this is where having the EMP resistance really comes in handy.
It's happening! Honey, it's gone from us!
But yeah, at this point, I could just keep firing at the glass, and it will eventually break, and it will eventually have a shot at Zhao Yunru.
They have at their disposal, Jensen. Despite your special genetics, you have been in over your head the whole time.
I think I'm in a place that doesn't get zapped right now.
There is no way you can defeat the system.
So yeah, I could just shoot at the glass from here and be done with it. But there are some other stuff. There's some other stuff. Such as the little robots. 4 of them come out, eventually. And yeah, you can see the blinking light there. That it starts blinking just before the robot comes out. And there's 4 of them. 4 bays, 4 robots. Come on, come on. I don't have all day to spend on you.
You and I have both.
So the other thing is that if you can survive long enough, I think it's just a timer and not based on whether you kill all 4 robots. But if you wait long enough, the feedback will hit the glass, fracture it, but you still have to actively shoot Zhao Yunru. Huh. You know, I could use the EMP mines for this too. But I just didn't think of it, I guess. Oh man.
I have worked too long to stop now.
Come on.
You on the floor. Is that it? No! It is all mine! I have given everything!
Yeah, first mines didn't do anything. Because it blew up because of the opening door, didn't hit the robot. But yeah, here's the, there's where you put the code in. You can't do it now because stage 1 is over. Yeah, like I said, the glass just sort of breaks, but you still have to kill her. Well, she is a boss. So you're not going to be saving her life either. Anyway, just behind her is a door, and through that door is the game's 4 endings. We are going to see those endings. Oh, Jesus. But we are going to have to see them next time. And now, to cap off the game's final boss fight, it's time for this Let's Play's final Cyberpunk Corner. And what better way could there be to do so than with one of the most famous books written by the grandfather of the genre, Philip K. Dick. Today's book is A Scanner Darkly, published in 1977. About the author. Philip K. Dick was born in Chicago in 1928, but his parents soon moved to the San Francisco Bay Area. In the early 30s, his parents divorced, and Dick crossed the nation to Washington, D.C., but not 5 years later, he went back to Berkeley, California. After high school, Dick spent exactly 1 semester in the University of California at Berkeley before dropping out, apparently due to his anxiety problems. This anxiety probably also has something to do with why Dick started taking drugs and entered the drug culture of California, since people trying to self-medicate their mental disorders is one of the more common entry points to drug addiction. Anyway, After dropping out, Dick had a short stint as a radio DJ and then spent the next few years working at a record store near the university campus. Still, Dick wouldn't stay there forever. Back in his early teens, he discovered pulp science fiction, and while he never studied writing formally, he did have a knack for telling stories. Dick sold his first short story in late 1951, and it wasn't long before he started writing full-time. In 1955, he published his first novel, Solar Lottery, and in 1963, his book, The Man in the High Castle, got him his first and only Hugo Award. Unfortunately, 1963 was also the year Philip K. Dick ran headfirst into the genre ghetto wall. Dick had made a real name for himself in science fiction circles over the past decade, but he also wrote and submitted non-genre literary novels, which were all rejected. 63 was basically the year he stopped trying, and even when he became more successful as a science fiction author, only one of his mainstream novels would ever be published in his lifetime. In 1971, Dick's fourth wife, out of 5, left him, and he started hitting amphetamines hard. In a move similar to the book I'll be discussing, Dick turned his house into a hangout spot for him and his drug-taking buddies. But in early 1972, he fell instantly in love with a woman he met at a Vancouver convention and decided to stay in Canada. This didn't last long thanks to his now serious addiction problem, and a month later he tried to kill himself with an overdose of sleeping pills. Dick survived, went to a Canadian rehab program for a month, and then finally went back home. In 1974, Dick started experiencing visions, hallucinations, and delusions. He believed that he was living a parallel life as Thomas, a persecuted Christian in the 1st century CE, and that he was communicating with Valis, the vast active living intelligence system, an aspect of God. Most of the books Dick wrote after this point were influenced by this religious awakening / amphetamine psychosis, with the notable exception being today's book, A Scanner Darkly. In 1982, Philip K. Dick died of a stroke, having lived just long enough to see Blade Runner in an early private screening. He was only 53 at the time. Aside from dying early, it was also unfortunate timing, since Star Wars was basically the turning point for when science fiction and fantasy started to be taken seriously by the general population. Genre fiction still isn't too respected in literary circles, but genre authors and other creators do get a lot more respect, fame, and money today than they ever did back in Dick's time. Still, he did leave us with plenty of novels and short stories, so it's about time I proceed to the story. First, a little setting background. A Scanner Darkly takes place in the distant future year of 1994, although it's a very late 70s vision of the future. Same 70s fashions, same 70s dollar values, same 70s cars, and the culture of Orange County, California is pretty much the same, but with some extra technology thrown in. Speaking of which, there's a new drug on the street called Substance D, known on the street as Death. Notably, the book doesn't say what kind of high Substance D offers, but we do learn that it has the high addiction rate and almost fatal withdrawal of opioids, the paranoia of marijuana, the risk of permanent brain damage of amphetamines, and the risk of hallucination flashbacks of LSD. You also take it as paper tabs that melt on your tongue, like LSD. Meanwhile, the government has become a surveillance state to an even greater extent than it is today, with every single phone tapped and every conversation examined by police officers. Also, hidden cameras can record 3D holograms, and undercover agents wear special scramble suits that conceal their identity when they report in at the station in order to keep their cover identity a secret from everyone. Instead of beginning with a protagonist, the book begins with Jerry Fabin, a man who has taken way too much death and now thinks there are aphids crawling all around him and biting every square inch of his body. He constantly takes scouring showers and uses one pesticide after another to no effect. His friend Charles Freck stops by, and Jerry talks him into helping him catch a few jars of aphids. but Charles gets up and leaves when he realizes the jars are empty, and he got caught up in Jerry's hallucination. Charles drives over to the local mall, which has an airport security system thanks to all of the Death Takers looking to steal everything they can to pay for their next fix. He spots a woman named Donna on the sidewalk, and since he knows she's Bob Arctor's, love interest? They're interested in each other, but Donna has no sex drive because she's on opioids. Anyway, Charles also knows that Donna deals in death, so he talks her into his car and makes a deal for a week's worth of the drug. We then move to Bob Arctor's perspective. Arctor is giving a speech to an upper-middle-class association while in a scramble suit, because he's actually an undercover narc, codenamed Fred. Arctor starts off with a standard war on drugs speech, but then he goes off script, asking the people to go easy on addicts who are as desperate for a fix as a diabetic is desperate for insulin. And he says to kill the pushers. His superiors aren't happy, but Arctor doesn't care. Charles Freck goes to a diner to talk with Jim Barris, one of Arctor's roommates, about how he may want to check into the local New Path rehab clinic. What with the epidemic of addiction, New Path has become a massive franchise that crosses the entire nation. But Barris talks Freck out of it, and, just so you know, Barris is the kind of guy who reads a technical manual at the public library and declares that he's an expert mechanic from that day on. He recently came up with a scheme to make a gram of cocaine out of a sunscreen spray, a scheme he hit upon because the spray's brand name kind of sounds like cocaine. When he and Freck get back to Arctor's place, Barris also fiddles around with, I'll just call it an expensive TV set. Also, Barris claims that the set was broken before he started messing with it. Meanwhile, Arctor visits the local New Path clinic because his superior, Hank, thinks a dealer may have ducked in to evade the police. This can work because New Path takes all of your identification and gives you a new name as part of the rehab process. But the New Path people insult and bully Arctor because they only take death junkies so strung out that they don't respond to insults. With no way of getting to the dealer, Arctor heads back to the precinct to get his next assignment, which turns out to be himself. Like I said, the other police officers only know of Arctor as a shapeless blur named Rick, and Arctor has been spending way more money than he should have had from his dead-end job. Money he actually gets from narking. To avoid blowing his cover, Rick simply agrees and decides to drive himself and his roommates to San Diego to look for a new TV and give the police enough time to set up the surveillance cameras. While in San Diego, Arctor meets with a girl he knows, Kimberly. Kimberly is basically trapped in an abusive relationship because her boyfriend is her meth dealer and her pimp, and she lives in a poor part of town, so the cops don't give enough of a shit to arrest her boyfriend for death threats, assault, vandalism, or drug possession. Plus, Kimberly doesn't want to press charges because she can't get meth as cheap from anyone else. As Arctor, Barris, and the third roommate, Luckman, drive home, the accelerator fails in a way that could only happen from sabotage. Arctor suspects Barris did it since Barris is a creep, but Luckman points out that he was in the car too. This starts Arctor doubting, so he's all the more glad that he'll have security footage to review so he can find out for certain. Fred starts reviewing the footage of Arctor's house, and he starts to experience a growing dissociation between his two identities. He gets a checkup at the station and finds out that he's having trouble identifying objects because his brain's hemispheres are having trouble communicating. So the part of his brain that processes visual information isn't talking to the part that identifies this information. It's that sort of thing. The doctors describe an incident they recorded where Arctor, Barris, and Luckman all failed to realize that you need to multiply the gears on a 10-speed bike and not add them. Later on, Arctor meets with Donna, and they go to her apartment. We find out that she smokes hash laced with black tar opium, and she has some conflicting worldviews. She thinks that the world is a miserable place and we're all going to hell afterwards, so we might as well have fun and burn out while we can, but she also wants a rich prince to sweep her off her feet and take her away to live a peaceful domestic life in Washington state. Arctur, for the record, is not that prince. Arctur then takes a random waitress to bed, and in the night, he sees her face turn into Donna's for a second. Later on, Fred sees the same thing on the recorded footage, but he doesn't realize that this is the second time he's seeing it. And if that weren't enough, we also can't say for sure whether this happened or not, because technology that can conceal your identity does exist, but Fred's head is completely messed up. Fred also sees Barris stuffing random mushrooms into pill capsules and passing them off as psychoactive shrooms. And he then watches Barris answer the phone when a locksmith calls the house about a bounced check. Supposedly, Arctur is the one who ordered a spare key and wrote the check, but Barris is pretending to be Arctur. Arctur goes to the locksmith in person and pays the bill, hoping for some insight as to why Barris would do this, but what he learns is that he really was the one who ordered the key, and he did it just after he blacked out one night. Arctur also broke his own TV and sabotaged his own car, because his dissociation is getting really bad now. In a chapter broken up by passages of von Goethe's Faust, passages in the original German, Arctur picks up a book about sex and quotes for the camera, "Any given man sees only a tiny portion of the total truth. And very often, in fact almost perpetually, he deliberately deceives himself about that little precious fragment as well. A portion of him turns against him and acts like another person, defeating him from the inside. A man inside a man, which is no man at all." The book treats this as a quotation from a philosopher, but I looked it up and it's apparently an original thought by Philip K. Dick. Anyway, Charles Freck kills himself in an evocative scene, and you should really watch the movie version to get the most out of it. Sometime later, Fred goes through some more tests and then finds out that Barris is trying to turn Bob Arctur in. He claims he has tapes of Arctur talking with Donna about some major drug conspiracy or something, but it's unclear whether Barris is doing this to sabotage Arctur, to lock Arctur away because the guy is fading fast, or because he's deluded himself into thinking that his conspiracy theory is true. Hell, it could be all three. Fred's superior takes Barris into what he calls protective custody, but he says to Fred that Barris was the real subject of their investigation into Arctur. On the other hand, at this point, we really shouldn't trust anything the police tell Fred. Fred gets his test results, and they're bad. He's basically completely burned out, and they have to send him to a new path clinic. They get Donna to drive him there because, it turns out, Donna is a federal drug agent who's been working with the local police. They've long suspected that the New Path organization is responsible for creating Substance D, but the rehab clinics are so strict and abusive that an undercover agent can't fake it well enough to get sent to one of the farms, where they grow the plant that becomes Substance D. So what they've done instead is set up Arctur to be a real burnout who doesn't know his true assignment. Instead, they've been feeding him suggestions like fresh air will do you good, and the best flowers are those little spring flowers that grow close to the ground. This way, Arctur can't confess his assignment because he doesn't have an assignment. But at the same time, what's left of his brain will hopefully be able to smuggle a Substance D flower to a narcotics agent during one of the few times that recovering addicts are allowed to meet with outsiders. There's one last thing I wanted to mention before the next segment, which is that Arctur, now known as Bruce, is remarkably canny and observant when he steals one of the flowers and hides it in his boot. He even recognizes that these flowers are what produce Substance D. But like everything else in this book, it's not clear if this means that Bruce is recovering or just means that his conditioning is acting up. The analysis. This has been a novel about some people who were punished entirely too much for what they did. They wanted to have a good time, but they were like children playing out in the street. They could see one after another of them being killed, run over, maimed, destroyed, but they continued to play anyhow. We really all were very happy for a while, sitting around, not toiling, but just bullshitting and playing. But it was for such a terrible brief time, and then the punishment was beyond belief. Drug misuse is not a disease, it is a decision, like the decision to step out in front of a moving car. You would call that not a disease, but an error in judgment. When a bunch of people begin to do it, it is a social error, a lifestyle. In this particular lifestyle, the motto is, be happy now, because tomorrow you are dying. But the dying begins almost at once, and the happiness is a memory. It is not different from your lifestyle. It is only faster. There is no moral in this novel. It is not bourgeois. It does not say that they were wrong to play when they should have toiled. It just tells what the consequences were. In Greek drama, they were beginning, as a society, to discover science, which means causal law. Here in this novel, there is nemesis, not fate, because any one of us could have chosen to stop playing in the street. But, as I narrate from the deepest part of my life and heart, a dreadful nemesis for those who kept on playing. If there was any sin, it was that these people wanted to keep on having a good time forever, and were punished for that. But, as I say, I feel that, if so, the punishment was far too great, and I prefer to think of it only in a Greek or morally neutral way, as mere science, as deterministic, impartial cause and effect. I love them all. Here's the list, to whom I dedicate my love. To Galen, deceased. To Ray, deceased. To Francie, permanent psychosis. To Kathy, permanent brain damage. To Jim, deceased. To Val, massive permanent brain damage. To Nancy, permanent psychosis. To Joanne, deceased. To Nick, deceased. To Terry, deceased. To Dennis, deceased. To Phil, as in Philip K. Dick, permanent pancreatic damage, and, very likely, permanent brain damage. To Sue, permanent vascular damage. To Jerry, permanent psychosis and vascular damage. And so forth. In memoriam. These were comrades whom I had. There are no better. They remain in my mind, and the enemy will never be forgiven. The enemy was their mistake in playing. Let them all play again, in some other way, and let them be happy. Philip K. Dick, author's note at the end of A Scanner Darkly. Now I do disagree with Dick on one point, which is that addiction is a disease. In the 40 years since he published this book, we have found the part of the brain it affects, and this effect is permanent. But he does have a point, because not everyone who uses drugs gets addicted, and not everyone who develops an addiction uses drugs. And not everyone who is predisposed to addiction will fall into that spiral and die from it. Addiction is complicated, because starting an addiction is a choice, but then addiction is a disease that affects your ability to make choices. Quitting is a choice, but almost everyone with a serious addiction needs some form of outside help, and not everyone has access to as much help as they need. This is especially true with opioid addiction, because going cold turkey with opioids can make you feel like you are dying. But aside from that clarification, I'm content to let Philip K. Dick have the last word on this novel. So thank you for joining me again today in Cyberpunk Corner, and I hope I'll see you next time, one final time, for dystopia that takes its name from a Shakespearean quote.